side, you want to promote cultures of liberty. I can't tell you historically how many kings, how many corrupt dynasties were brought down by a jester telling jokes that became viral in ancient times, or by the local band, or even one guy with his, they didn't even have guitars back then, you know, one guy with his little mandolin or whatever, singing songs about the corrupt nobility. That would change it. So a song or an idea that isn't in the hands of the system could bring them down, and that's why they target people like you.
Hey, look, there was a reason the CIA was, spying on John Lennon. At that point in time, he was probably the most dangerous artist in the world.
They killed him, too.
Well, I can't speak to that, but I'll say this much. If you look at the power that rock and roll had in the 70s, vis-a-vis the power that rock and roll has now, I think there's been a concerted effort to drain those systems of their power. Because it's just too radical. It's just too dangerous. And there's, when you have the power of a John Lennon or a Bob Marley, and they can literally have one song that will change the consciousness of the world and get people to look at something different. And I would point, and I'm saying this from a very specific point of view. Look at the lack of political music in the world right now, and compare that to the 1960s. It is unbelievable, the lack of political and social discourse in music right now. Do you think that's an accidental omission?
They came in and they took it over on record. Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins fame is our guest. SmashingPumpkinsNexus.com. We're going to send out a tweet of the website right now. We're going to post this video later today on Facebook and Twitter. It needs to go viral because he has a lot of courage saying what he's saying, because they really come after people. And I got to be very careful here what I'm going to say about John Lennon. But they made a film 6-7 years ago that won a bunch of awards that had the declassified documents where Strom Thurmond, the senator, and others said, we want him taken out. We know the suspicious way he was killed. I'm just going to stop right there. But I've talked to the highest level people and been told stuff about what really went on and then what happened to them afterwards and everything. And I can tell you, the FBI and the CIA killed John Lennon. And then they went on a campaign to cover up what they did with their patsy. And so that's why when we talk about this, folks, it's very dangerous. I mean, so we're not saying, hey, we're heroes here. We're just saying, realize this isn't just your regular, shuck and jive on CNN. I mean, we're really laying it out here.
I think what's kind of funny about the modern life is I don't think they have to kill you anymore. I think they just digitally kill you.
That's right.
You know what I mean? If anything, you're almost better as a sort of living effigy. Which is why I think some of these people come out of the woodwork to try to slit my throat. I mean, criticize me as an artist, that's fine. There's plenty to criticize. But if you look at a lot of the subtext of the things that are written about an artist like me, it has a lot of times it gets in a lot of sort of false narratives, moral equivalencies that have nothing to do with music or art or love or people's lives.
You just said it. You just said it. They create straw men that aren't Alex Jones or Billy Corgan, and then they attribute things we didn't say. They have these campaigns. They send out fake emails that aren't from me, insulting people. They call people up and say it's me and insult them, famous people. They spoof faxes, and I know it's the government and corporation, so believe me, what Billy's talking about, it goes on here all the time in an attempt to derail us, but it's not going to work because Billy Corgan and Alex Jones are just little bitty expressions like a compound eye of a dragonfly. We're just one little tiny part of it. You can't chop off all the heads.
Totally agree with you. And one thing I would add to that, because I know sometimes when I talk like this to people, they think, well, are you saying that everyone who works at the local paper is... No, it's these systems are put in place, and then they go out and they find people who are not free thinkers to basically implement the program.
They regurgitate the national story. They're already the little sycophantic type that'll go with whatever the mindless pop culture narrative is.
Absolutely, and I've even had off-record conversations like I know you have, where people have admitted to me where they've had stories squashed.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody makes a juice call and makes sure a story is squashed or a particular agenda is promoted. So when you're looking at your local media and you see and you go, well, this smells like propaganda, know that more than likely that person is not conscious. They are been put in that position because they're a proven bootlicker.
Almost all local news is written in New York or L.A. or D.C. This is on record and packaged and sent. You tell them the local story, and then they send down what you say. Or it's read off a teleprompter if it's a national story.
Right. So if there's a man in a high castle somewhere, there's not a lot of them. But they're able to, through their control and their media control, sort of manipulate the storyline. Look, your listeners know, and I'm a listener. We know these things are. I mean, we sit back. Look, when Ferguson started to boil over, and you had Jakari and
Biggs.
Joe Biggs down there. I was watching some of the coverage, and it's really interesting. Because it's so important that you do that because you're giving us the real on-the-street perspective as opposed to the propaganda perspective.
Billy Corgan, stay there. Come back and finish up with that thought. Let's talk about the record straight ahead.
We're on the march.
Because, believe me, they have targeted Billy and his organization because of him speaking out on a whole bunch of issues. They don't like what they call loose cannons. They want people that will submit and go along with their whole agenda. Billy, I want to thank you for the gift of my Bohemian Grove security shirt and real badge. I mean, real shoulder patch. When I wear that out, people say, "Who in the world do you work for?"
Yeah, it was great. I found that in somewhere outside of San Francisco, and it was like sitting on a shelf, and I thought, oh my God, I gotta get this for Alex.
That is awesome. Billy, I want to get back into what you said about Ferguson and more on the album before you have to leave us in that airport you're sitting in right now. But Tommy Lee, I had heard from folks that he was awake. I had heard from somebody that worked with him on a TV show behind the scenes that he was all aware of the New World Order. I know you don't want to speak for him personally, but can you repeat what you told me during the break?
No, Tommy's eyes are wide open. And you talked a lot of artists off record, and you and I have talked about that. I mean, I think the general public would be shocked how much of the entertainment world is awake, and it's because they're behind the wizard's curtain.
Joe Perry's fully awake. Joe Perry's fully awake. I need to call him today, but a lot of folks are. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is these paradigms have been set up where it's like, you have to stare down the barrel of a particular gun. In this case, your career. Like I said, I mean, what's the new paradigm? You're going to get digitally assassinated. You know what I mean? I know there would be some people, particularly in the rock and roll world, that will roll their eyes at these kind of assertions. But there's a reason that the great artists get marginalized. They get sucked into things that have nothing to do with their music, and I'm literally everything I say now is trolled for quotes. And I'm not saying it's all political. Some of it's just dumb stuff. But the fact of the matter is this whole business has risen up around entertainment. It's big business, but it ultimately is about the disenfranchising of the artist's vote in the culture. In essence, the constant message is artists' voices don't matter.
Exactly.
When you look at what a Jimi Hendrix represented as opposed to your normal average politician, okay, you tell me who's the more honorable person.
Well, it's obviously Jimi Hendrix following his soul, his heart, trailblazing, creating heavy rock, heavy metal, and a true pioneer. Right, and so that's what I'm trying to say is from cradle to grave, there are systems in place, you pick them, now it's Common Core, the scholarship programs, all this. They're meant to take anybody who's too bright, too smart, and make sure they're corralled into a system from the get-go. And God forbid you exist outside that system and prosper as you and I have, and bless the Lord for the gifts He's given us. And I think both of us, and I know we've talked about this, we feel a great responsibility to turn those gifts around to serve others. And if it kills us, it kills us. But at the end of the day, we've got to trust the man upstairs. There's a greater purpose here at play, and if what we watched on the old the old systems, the mainstream media system, if that's truth, I don't want to live in that world anyway. That's beautifully said. I don't want to live in that world anyway because it is a fraud. It is a lie. I feel so empowered. Not that I have all the answers. I make a lot of mistakes. I say stupid stuff sometimes. I mean, I hear my show rebroadcast and go, oh, my God, that sounds horrible. I don't mean that. But at the same time, my heart's true. I'm trying to tell the truth. And more of what I say turns out to be accurate than what dinosaur media says. And it resonates with people. And then I just don't want to let them down. It's humbling to know there's so many good people that are awake now and looking for me for leadership or whoever. I don't think that's where the leadership is. It's in our hearts. It's in our souls. It's in following our gut. it's in doing the right thing, and it's in doing the opposite of what mainstream dinosaur media says. I want to ask you about this. Where do you in your gut, Billy, as you say the world's on fire, a previous album, where do you in your gut think civilization's really going? Are we going to survive? Will we make it to the next Renaissance and beyond? And what do you think that fight's going to look like?
You know, I hold my breath on that one. You know, there's a big fight coming. You know, it's one thing to listen to you talk about FEMA documents and, you know, executive orders that we don't know about. And yesterday I think you had on your site about this idea that it's now legal to spy on everyone everywhere for the end of time and all this kind of stuff. You know, these systems are going to double and triple down. Because they have no alternate plan. You understand? They've been in power for a very long time, and whoever's pulling those levers is not. They're not. You know, look, when a baseball team loses, they go, "Oh, we'll come back next year and we'll rebuild." No, these guys are in it to win. And you know, sometimes when I'm sitting around a table and your name comes up, or I say some things that I've learned through you and through other people. They get into like kind of games about accuracy. Like, well, how can you know that that's true? And all I got to say again and again is like, look, come on, something's off here. Something's wrong. And people like you, people like me, we don't have to be accurate. That's not our job. Our job is not to be perfect. We don't hold ourselves up to be perfect. We don't hold ourselves up to be, you know, keepers or truth tellers or something like that. We're just pointing at, as you often say, you know, you're just pointing and saying, do you see that big thing that's coming down the road? I do.
Exactly. And they say, well, what exactly is it? How do we know your eyes are authorized to say that's a juggernaut with fire shooting out of it, out of Road Warrior? And I'm like, well, I came by another village. They said something that looked like that blew it up. So that thing looks scary. What are we going to do about it? And And again, I would recommend anybody the same thing. And I'm sorry, you know, the collective world that's awake. You know, let's extend it even beyond your audience. We don't have to be right. We don't have to be accurate. We know what wrong is. We know what wrong is, and we know a lot of what's going on is wrong. You know? Well, sure, they have this fake moral authority where accuracy in media, or where media matters, remember the White House, or where you know, they have that truth detector site, or Snopes, you know, run by you know, a couple in an apartment. They sit on the mountain and they say what reality is. And I mean, anybody that starts telling you they have a corner on reality, well, that's who you really got to watch.
Hey, if we reach a point as a race where we do not grieve the loss of every child, I don't care what color, I don't care where they're from. You know what I mean? If we don't grieve the loss of every child, that's an indictment of us. You know, and we've got to be protesting for every child, every situation. You know, we need to have moral outrage where there's injustice everywhere. And then when we see agendas at play, we have to step back and say, why is this more important than everything else? We have to grieve for all of these things. We have to grieve for the GMOs. We have to grieve for the chemtrails. We have to grieve for all this crap that we have to face down. And we have to pull together. That's what I mean. We don't have to be right. We don't have to be right. We just have to know. As long as we know, that's the power. I'm blessed to be one voice in the wilderness, at least a free thinker. There are times where it's very difficult in a musical life to struggle, where, you know, the numbers don't add up and you don't get the advantage that you think you should get and all these things. And those are those hard days where you got to stare in the mirror and say, would I rather be on my knees, subjugated to some system that would ask me to be a robot, Muppet, something, or would I rather be a free thinker? And that's what I would say. I'm proud to be a free thinker. And if that means what it means, you know, a half full hall somewhere, that's what it means. Because I can't go down any other way.
Well, you know my favorite quote by Mark Twain, he had a lot of great ones. In the beginning, a patriot is a scarce man, hated, feared, and scorned. But in time, when his cause succeeds, the timid join him. Then it costs nothing to be a patriot. I was on over 100 radio stations. It was just unheard of when I was, like, you know, 26, 27 years old, and 9/11 happened. And it was just unheard of. And I was on 100 stations, small mom and pop, some of them, but high ratings. And I was growing. And then the towers got blown up, and I said, no, the government's clearly involved. And those stations all called, most of them. They said, we're going to turn you off next week. Or we're going to turn you off next month when the contract's up. They're usually monthly contracts. If you don't, stop it right now. And you know what? I didn't feel bad at all when Ted Anderson came in and he said, all these stations are turning you off. You just lost 10 today. They're warning you, you got to stop now. And I said, Ted, I just can't stop. And it's the truth. And he said, I really respect that, Alex. He goes,